Okay, everyone, we back. Hello again, right? So this is gonna be part two of the year, part 222A. All right, and like I said, we knew we only try to do segments of 30 minutes, no more than little 30 minutes. So we was breaking them down so it's easier for them to download and then push them over into Facebook. All right, so we're gonna be we in chapter 78. We're gonna start off with chapter 78. We did chapter 77, that was part one. So we're gonna start off with chapter 78, and it's a huge chapter. We're gonna see if we can get through the whole chapter, part two. If not, we might have to have another part three. We'll see. All right, so we're gonna get started. We're gonna read verses 1 through 3, and what I'm gonna do at first is read the little subtitle. All right, okay, Psalm chapter 78. All right, so this is the 16th Psalm of instruction on choosing the temple site. Michelle, instruction of Asaph. Okay? I say Asaph. Well, yeah, Asaph. Okay. So we'll read verses 1 through 8, and then we'll come back and discuss it. Okay? We're in Psalm chapter 78. Okay? All right? Ready to read. Give ear, O my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generations to come the praises of the Lord, in his strength and his wonderful works that he hath done. For he established a testimony in Jacob, and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make known to their people. Okay. That the generations to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children, that they might set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments, and might not be as their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart aright, and whose spirit was not steadfast with God. Okay, so we're going to come back, all right, all the way back to verse 1. We're in Psalm chapter 78. Okay? Right there where it says, give ear. Okay? Okay, right there it says give ear. So I'm going to give you two commands. The first one is give ear to my law. And this is from verse 1. It says found 14 times in the Old Testament, but not once in the New Testament. It means to give heed and obey the law, and to listen. Okay. The second command is incline your ears to my words. Found 60 times in the Old Testament, but not once in the New Testament. It means to stretch out or put forth every effort to obey the law. Wow. All right, so come down to verse 2. Verse 2. Right there it says, I will open my mouth in a parable. Okay. So the Hebrew word for parable is mashal. Means similitude, likeness, proverb. Okay. All right. So the idea in Matthew chapter 13, verse 35 is that of an illustration, but as used here, it means I will give you instruction by numerous examples. Here we have a great historical psalm, the first of 4 such psalms. Okay. So this is the first one, 78, and then the next will be 105, Psalm 105, Psalm 106, and Psalm 136. Okay. This is the first great historical psalm. Okay. So there are 80 acts of God and 36 committed during Israel history recorded here alone. Wow. Okay, I told you it's a big chapter. It's 72 verses. Right? Yeah. Okay, so come down to, stay in verse 2 where it says, I will utter dark saying of old. Dark saying, dark. Okay. This is interesting. The Hebrew word for dark is chadat. It means a knot, accurately hidden saying. Okay, so I guess it's dark sayings. Okay, a puzzle, a proverb, a riddle, a conundrum. Okay, the puzzle here is not the expression of mystery in words hard to understand, but great wonderment of how these many miraculous things happened to Israel. Wow. Come down to verse 3, right there it says, which we heard and known. So these so-called parables or dark sayings are simple statements of fact in Israel's history, previously passed from generation to generation by word of mouth. Here, we know that's how stuff is passed down, by word of mouth, okay? So here, they are written for all generations to know, okay? Wow. Learn some new Bible study every day. Coming down to verse 4, which says, showing to the generation to come the praises of the Lord. Okay? Recounting the past so that coming generations may know the miraculous dealings of God and his mighty works. Okay? And then come down to verse 5, where it says, and appointed a law in Israel. Okay? The nation of Israel had the law commanded only to them, not the Gentiles. Okay? This is true. All right, and then we're going to come down to verse 6. All right, where it says that the generation to come might know them. Okay, I'm going to give you 7 reasons for teaching the law. The first one is that the generations to come might know the truth and the laws of God. Number 2, that the generations to come might pass the truth on to others. Number 3, that they might hope in God. Number 4, that they might not forget the great works of God. Number 5, that was number 4. Number 5, that they might keep his commandments. Number 6, that they might not be as their fathers, a stubborn, rebellious generation. And number 7, that they might set their hearts right and be steadfast in God. Okay? All right. So we're going to come down and we'll read verses 9 through 16. All right. Y'all ready? Okay. Ready to read. The children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turned back in the day of battle. They kept not the covenant of God and refused to walk in his law, and forgot his works and his wonders that he has showed them. Okay. Marvelous things did he in the sight of their fathers. Marvelous things did he in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Egypt, in the field of Zoan. He divided the sea and caused them to pass through, and he made the waters to stand as a heap. In the daytime also he led them with a cloud, and all the night with a light of fire. He clave the rocks in the wilderness and gave them drink as out of the great depths. He brought streams also out of the rock and caused waters to run down like rivers. Okay, so let's come back. Right there in verse 12. No, I'm sorry. Come all the way back to verse 9. All the way back to verse 9. Right there where it says, turn back in the day of battle. So I'm going to read to you, my pen, I'm going to give you 30 sins and rebellions of Israel. Okay. All right. Okay. Where is it at? All right. Okay. 30 sins and rebellions of Israel. The first one is turn back in the day of battle. Number 2, broke the covenant of God. Number 3, refused to walk in his law. Number 4, forgot his works. Number 5, forgot wonders he had shown them. Went deeper into sin. Number 7, tempted God by asking meat. Spoke against God. Number 9, refused to believe in God. Number 10, rejected his salvation. Number 11, continued to lust, persisted in sin, persisted in unbelief. Number 14, flattered God. Number 15, lied to God. Number 16, lived in rebellion. Number 17, refused to be faithful, provoked God often. Number 19, grieved God for 40 years. 20, tempted God by turning back. 21, limited God. Number 22, remember not his deliverances, remember not his signs and wonders in Egypt. Tempted and provoked God. Number 25, kept not his testimonies. Backslid. Number 27, dealt unfaithfully with God. 28, lived in deceit and hypocrisy. Number 29, committed idolatry. And number 30, moved God to jealousy with graven images. Okay? All right. So, that was 30 sins and rebellions of Israel. Okay? So, we're going to come down to verse 12. All right? And I'm going to write there, it says, marvelous things did he in the sight of their fathers. So now I'm giving you 80 acts of God. Okay? The first one is he divided Red Sea. Number 2, caused Israel to pass through the sea as on dry ground. Made the waters to congeal. Led Israel by a cloud by day. Led them by a pillar of fire by night. Number 6, he claimed the rock. Number 7, gave water to drink. Brought streams out of the rock. Caused waters to run like rivers. Number 10, commanded the clouds. Number 11, opened the doors of heaven, rained manna from heaven, gave them corn from heaven, sent them angels food. Number 15, sent meat for all the nations. Caused the east wind to blow from heaven. 17, also brought the south wind. 18, rained flesh like dust. 19, rained quails like sand of the sea. Brought quails into their camp, brought them all about their tents, sent enough to fill all the people. Number 23, he gave them their desire. Number 24, cursed them because of their lust. 25, he cut short their days. Number 26, gave them many troubles. Number 27, slew them because of sin. Number 28, he forgave them. 29, he spared their lives. 30, turned his anger away often. Held his wrath many times. Remember that they were but flesh. He remembered they were like wind which passes away and is gone. 34, he delivered them from enemies. Turned rivers to blood. Number 36, sent many kinds of flies. Sent innumerable frogs. Sent locusts to destroy the harvest. He sent hail. He sent frost. He sent lightning. He sent evil angels to destroy them. 43, he sent pestilence. Smote the firstborn of Egypt. 45, made Israel to go forth like sheep, guided them in the wilderness like a flock. 47, he led them to safety, brought them into Canaan. 49, cast the nations out before them. 50, divided them inheritance. 51, he made them dwell safely. 52, he was wroth, he greatly abhorred Israel. 54, forsook the tabernacle at Shiloh. 55, placed a tent among men. He delivered Israel to captivity, gave them up to the enemy. 58, he gave Israel to the sword. 59, he gave them up in his wrath, gave young men to the fire. He made young women perpetual virgins. 62, gave priests to the sword. 63, gave their widows grief. 64, he awoke as one from sleep. 65, awoke like a mighty man. 66, he smote his enemies, made them a perpetual reproach, refused the house of Joseph, rejected the house of Ephraim. Number 70, chose the tribe of Judah. He chose Mount Zion. Number 72, he built his sanctuary. Number 73, he made it eternal as the earth. Number 74, chose David as servant. 75, took him from the sheepfolds. Number 76, took him from the following the sheep great. Took him from following the sheep great with young. 77, he fed Jacob, his people. 78, fed Israel, his inheritance. 79, fed them according to the integrity of his heart. And number 80, guided them by the skillfulness of his hand. Okay, so that right in reference to 80 acts of God. Okay, wow. Let me say when we say wow, wow, wow. Okay, all right. Yes, so let's come down. All right, let me look at my notes. Okay, we're going to come down. Come on back. We'll come down to verse 16. I'm at verse 16, right? It says, he brought streams also out of the rock. So we're in Psalm chapter 78, verse 16. Okay. So this refers to Rephidim. Okay, we're going to reference that. This here right here. Put it back. We'll come to Exodus. Go back to Exodus chapter 17. If you want your device, you're just going to punch it in. Exodus chapter 17. All right. Get there myself. Y'all know I like the hardback. Even though I do stuff online, I still like the hardback. Okay, Exodus chapter 17. And we're going to read verses 6 through 7. All right? Y'all ready? All right. Ready, read. Behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? Okay? All right. So let's come on right there, okay? Very, very interesting, all right? Oh, come on back to Psalm chapter 78, okay? So in reference to verse 16, about the waters. Streams also out of the rock, okay? So we're going to come down, and we are going to read verses 17 through 22, all right? Y'all ready? All right? We're in Psalm chapter 78. All right, ready to read. And they sinned yet more against him by provoking the Most High in the wilderness. And they tempted God in their heart by asking meat for their lust. Yea, they spake against God. They said, can God furnish a table in the wilderness? Behold, he smote the rock that the waters gushed out and the streams overflowed. Can he give bread also? Can he provide flesh for his people? Therefore the Lord heard this and was wroth. So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also came up against Israel, because they believed not in God and trusted not in his salvation. All right. Okay, so let's come back to verse 17, right? And they sinned yet more against him. Okay. Note sins alternated with wonders. Okay, so sins of Israel, verse 9 through 11. We talk about Psalms chapter 78, and then the wonders of God, verses 12 through 16. Then we got the sins of Israel right here, these 5 sins in verses 17 to 22. Then the wonders of God, verses 23 to 29. Number 3, sins of Israel, verse 30, then wonders of God, verse 31. Number 4, sins of Israel, verse 32, and wonders of God, verse 33 to 35. Sins of Israel, verse 36 to 37, wonders of God, verses 38 through 39. And number 6, sins of Israel, verses 40 through 42, wonders of God, verses 43 through 55. And the 7th one is sins of Israel, verses 56 through 58. And then the wonders of God, verses 59 through 72. So we already discussed verses 9 through 11, and then his wonders in verses 12 through 16. So it's letting you know the psalmist talk about the sins, then he talk about the wonders of God as well. God is good. God is good. He loves you unconditionally. He loves you, loves you, loves you. All right, come down to verse 22. We're in Psalm chapter 78. Right there it says, because they believe not in God. Okay. So unbelief is the basis of sin and therefore the cause of curses. Okay. How important is then that to have faith? It is very important to have faith. Don't believe. Believe. You get an unbelief, then yeah, everything, all those curses are coming because you don't believe, so you're gonna believe in something. So if you don't believe in God, you got unbelief in God, you're gonna have belief in something else, which is the opposite. Okay? And all that stuff's gonna come. You don't want that stuff. I'm telling you, you don't want it. You don't want it. Just trust the Lord. Trust him. Alright, so let's come down and we'll read verses 23 through 29. We're in Psalm chapter 78. Alright? Ready, read. Though he had commanded the clouds from above and opened the doors of heaven, and had rained down manna upon them to eat, and have given them of the corn of heaven, man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. He caused the east wind to blow into heaven, and by his power he brought in the south wind. He rained flesh also upon them as dust, and feathered fowls like as the sand of the sea. And he let it fall in the midst of their camp, round about all their habitations. So they did eat, and were well filled, for he gave them their own desire. All right, so let's come on back. Let's get good. Come on back to verse 24 where it says, and had rained down manna upon them to eat. The food rained from heaven is called 1 manna, 2 corn from heaven, 3 angels' food, 4 meats, 5 bread. Okay, food rained from heaven. 5 different things called. Verse 25, man did eat angels' food. Okay. God, angels, and all other spirit beings eat food. All right. Interesting. Come down to verse 29, where it says, for he gave them their own desire. Sometimes, this is a note, Mr. Datesman, this is so good. Sometimes this is not the best for men or women, for the desires are wrong. Okay? Talking about the desire, but that's why I want the desire in my heart. And you get it, okay? Sometimes you ain't gonna want it, okay? Yeah, so it's good to pray that let the Lord will be done. Yes. Okay, so let's come down and read verses 30 through 39. All right, we're in Psalm chapter 78. All right, ready, read. They were not estranged from their lust, but while their meat was yet in their mouths, the wrath of God came upon them and slew the fattest of them and smote down the chosen men of Israel. For all this they sinned still and believed not for his wondrous works. Therefore their days did he consume in vanity and their years in trouble. When he slew them, then they sought him, and they returned and inquired early after God. And they remembered that God was their rock and the high God, their Redeemer. Nevertheless, they did flatter him with their mouth, and they lied unto him with their tongues. For their heart was not right with him, neither were they steadfast in his covenant. But he, being full of compassion, forgave their iniquity, and destroyed them not. Yea, many a time turned his anger away, and did not stir up all his wrath. For he remembered that they were but flesh, a wind that passes away and cometh not again. Okay, so let's come back and discuss that. Going back to verse, I'm looking at my notes. Verse 31 says, for all this they sinned still. In face of all these judgments, Israel went deeper into sin, as God predicted in Leviticus chapter 26. It's interesting because you see all the blessings, the part of the Red Sea. But even when they left, all the stuff that happened in Egypt, and then when they left, All stuff, okay, let's come back. All stuff that was happening in Egypt, all the plagues. When nothing happened to them, they was in Goshen. Right there, okay? So then when they left with all their stuff. And then part of the Red Sea is still. So it's interesting because, God can bless people and people can be blessed and not be thankful and end up going right back in the same situation they was in. He can get them out of the situation. They pray, and then they end up right back in the same situation. Right? Okay. So let's come down. Come all the way down. We have to remember that. We all have to remember that. That when he blesses us out of situations, not to go back. All right, right there, verse 35 saying, the high God, their Redeemer. Okay. The word high, use of God. Okay, so I'm going to reference that. I didn't want me to read that. The word high. Put me right there. High is a use of God. Okay. All right. Okay. All right here. So the first way the word high is used of God is the Most High God. Number 2, the Most High. Number 3, the High God. Number 4, the High and Lofty One. That's 4. Okay. So the terms refer to the only true and living God, the highest sovereign, the Almighty, the all-powerful One. All right. So true. All right. So I'm gonna come back. All right, and we're going to come down to, where am I at? Come down to verse 36, where it says, nevertheless, they did flatter him with their mouth. Okay. Flattery. This is a good note too. I have to put that down there. Okay, flattering God is making statements about him which one does not mean. It is lip praise only. It also refers to making of vows which one does not intend to keep. Whoa, okay? So that's why we have to be mindful of the words that come out of our mouth, okay? Come down to verse 39 where it says, for he remembered that they were but flesh, okay? 10 things God remembers. The first one is his covenants. Number 2, his truth. Number 3, his mercy. Number 4, his promises. Number 5, the promised land. Number 6, that men are but flesh. Number 7, that we are but dust. Number 8, our frame. Number 9, we are like a wind that passes away and comes not again. And number 10, the sins of men to judge them. 10 things God remembers. Okay? 10 things man remembers. Faults, fish, cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, garlic, the days of darkness, his own ways, what others have against him. Interesting, right? So that was 10 things man remember. Okay, so I'm going to give you 10 things God commands to remember. Okay? First one is commandments of God. Number 2, God. Number 3, God's marvelous works. Number 4, the Creator. Number 5, former things of old. Number 6, the Word. Number 7, Jesus Christ. Number 8, those in bonds. Number 9, those who have the rule over you. Number 10, from whence you are fallen. 10 things God commands to remember. Okay? Now I'm going to give you two things man wants God to forget. The first one, sins of his youth. Number 2, former sins. These are the things God promises to forget if man will confess his sins and renounce them. Okay? That's right. Okay, y'all told me to learn something new. Bible study all the time. So let's come down and read verses 40 through 42. All right? Y'all ready? Ready, read. How often did they provoke him in the wilderness and grieve him in the desert? Yea, they turned back and tempted God and limited the Holy One of Israel. They remembered not his hand, nor the day when he delivered them from the enemy. Okay? So let's come back. I went back to verse 40, right there. It says, how oft did they provoke him? So 10 times in 2 years. 10 times in 2 years. Okay? All right? And then we'll come down to verse 41 said, yea, they turned back. Okay? This is another term for backsliding. All right, and then come down to verse 41 said, and tempted God. Again, 10 times in 2 years. So we're going to reference this on this time. We're going to put a pin. We'll come down to Numbers. We'll come back to Numbers, not down to Numbers. We'll come back to Numbers, chapter 14. All right, Numbers after Leviticus, chapter 14. We'll come over to verse 22. All right. Numbers chapter 14, verse 22. Ready, read. Because all those men which have seen my glory and my miracles which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness have tempted me now these 10 times and have not hearkened to my voice. Okay. All right. Just looking for a note. Okay. All right. Okay, so let me. I told you my next Bible is trying to run away from me. You can't. All right, so let's come back. Let's come back. Where's my notes? Okay. Well, yeah, I'll put it right there. Okay. All right, so let's come back to verse 41. Right there says the Holy One of Israel. Okay, this title is found 3 times. No, I'm sorry. Come back. Right there it says and limited before the Holy One of Israel. Right there, limited. Okay, to limit God is one of the most common sins today. Any limitation of Him and His promises is the same as committed by Israel, for which they were cut off. So we don't limit God. He's unlimitless. He got you. Don't try to put him in a box. Limit to him and say, well, okay, no, Lord, I'm limit to you to this right here. Everything. No. Don't limit him. Don't do it. Okay. So this is very interesting. So if God tells you, use this the right way. He wants you to do this or whatever He asks you to do. Don't put limits on Him. Whereas you say, okay, Lord, well, I'm only going to limit myself to do a certain part of that. Or I'm only limited, this is the only part I want to do, or put a limit. I'm going to use it like that. So don't put limits on Him. Don't limit Him. He's wonderful. He's wonderful. I know I got my hand like this, but He really is. I'm thinking about this. It's very interesting. It's like, yeah, don't limit Him. Don't do that. Okay? So, don't try to do it yourself. So you think about what He said Israel was cut off, because they, putting limits on Him. Don't try to do it yourself, and He got it. And that's what they were trying to do, do everything themselves and question everything, complain about everything, stuff like that. Don't do that, okay? Because God is good, all right? He's wonderful, 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 wonderful. All right, this part where it says in verse 41, the Holy One of Israel, okay? So this title is found 3 times in Psalms. Chapter 71, chapter 78, this one right here, and chapter 89. And 28 times elsewhere. 25 times in Isaiah alone. Alright? The Holy One of Israel. Coming out of verse 42, right there it says, they remember not His hand. Okay. So God remembers man, but man forgets God. It's the rest of them, right? It's the next one right there. It's true. Right, so we're going to come down. We're going to read verses 43 through, let's see. No, we're going to wait. We're going to stop right here, and we're going to have to do a part 3. We're going to have to, yeah. Part 3. All right, so we'll be back in a minute. All right, okay. God is good. We'll be coming back with part 3. All right.